This is Robert Mardlacci, the MindShare Learning Report, Canada's Learning and Technology e-magazine. And welcome to this week in Canadian EdTech, very special edition. I'm honored to have joined me for a MindShare Learning Moment, Priten Shah, who is the author of AI and the Future of Education, Teaching in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. He's a Harvard graduate. We shared his book recently in one of the MindShare reports, and we just happened to connect. Sometimes you just need to reach out to people and they actually respond back to you on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, Priten.
I'm very excited to be here tonight.
And it's pretty cool to hear that you have family in Canada. So we need to get you up here talking about your book and the future of AI. It's vastly misunderstood in education. I'm part of C21 Canada, and we are writing a report on it. A lot of the school districts have yet to develop policy around it. So one of our co-op students or two of our co-op students from local high school, are being blocked from accessing ChatGPT.
Yep.
I know that early on that the New York City schools blocked it. And when I was at EdTech Week in New York recently, they actually started an incubator on AI in education. So a lot going on. Talk to me about the inspiration for the book.
Yeah, I think you actually hinted at it already. And I think it's largely that there was a lot of fear when AI came out, and the newest waves of AI came out last fall. And we kind of saw lots of folks starting to be really worried about what that meant for their school assignments, what that meant for what students were doing at home in terms of plagiarizing. And I was sitting here coding away, very excited about the technology, building some tools that I thought were going to be innovative and exciting and engaging for students. And so the book was kind of my way to hopefully get folks on board with seeing that while it has created some problems, and those problems are real, there's also lots of great potential for how we can think about education in the future with the using AI as a tool. And so the book hopefully does a little bit of both of that. It helps us think about how we can deal with the problems that it's created for us, but also see the bigger picture of where we can be as an education system.
Fascinating. Now you just, we were talking off air in our warm-up chat about a recent workshop you did, and there is a lot of hesitation. People are reticent to change oftentimes.
Yeah.
We have our early adopters,
Right.
much like us, and then you have your laggards, but you're able to turn people around once you take a deeper dive.
Yeah, I think a deeper dive and a deeper breath sometimes is what's necessary here. And we try to do that with folks when we meet them. We try to give them an overview of all of the ways that we know that what they're worried about, the bias issues, the privacy issues, thinking about the plagiarism issues, how students are using it to cheat. But we also talk about how we can do a lot of really cool things, meet a lot of the goals that we have as educators using AI technology. And by the end of our time with them, they're usually very much able to see the potential benefits of it. And I think that's true that there will always be some negatives and downsides to new technology, especially this powerful. But as long as we can try to reorient both our students and our systems to take advantage of the technology, I think we can start all taking a deep breath and just focusing on what we like to do, which is teach.
And you, as we see here on your website that I'm sharing, you offer a practical guide, and it's really focused at the teacher level. Talk to me about leadership and how leaders need to first understand before it cascades down. There's the notion of bottom up, top down. I think there's somewhere in between where you need to sort of educate both at the same time because it's moving so fast. I mean, kudos to you. You said you wrote this book in 1 month. That's inspiring to me, as I've been struggling to finish my book, The Art of Networking in the Digital Age. So it requires intense focus to get things done sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the need is just so fast, right? I think that everybody kind of needs to get on board very quickly with what the problems are, with what the potential is. And we do a little bit of both. We do a lot of workshops catered towards administrators. We go in and do particular PDs with department heads, with superintendent's curriculum. And we kind of try to help them have conversations about what kind of policies they need to be thinking about creating at the district level, what kind of policies they should help their teachers be thinking about, and what kind of training they'll need to provide their teachers in order to help their teachers really see the benefits and deal with all the downsides. But most of our work is directly teacher facing. We try to do a lot of things where teachers can access us without having to go through their schools, so that if they know that they want to start building some professional development around AI, they can come take one of our online courses, they can attend one of our workshops, they can read the book, and they can engage with a lot of our online content and tools that we provide as well. But our long-term goal is to get more administrators on board so that they can support their teachers through that journey.
Well, I'm excited to see that you have an audiobook coming, because I prefer to listen. I'm one of those auditory learners that,
Yeah.
and I am visual, but auditory seems to work better because I tend to fall asleep and I travel a fair bit. So it's easier to listen to a book than to read it. And that's launching in the new year.
That's right. And I'm also an audiobook person. I prefer to listen to an audiobook as I drive or go for a run.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited that Wiley has been able to partner up to create an audiobook version of it. And it does come out right in the middle of January. So we're really excited for that. And pre-orders are out for that already.
So do you feel Harvard really prepared you, your career at education career at Harvard? Talk to me about that experience and how it kind of prepared you for what you do today.
Yeah, I love talking about this. I think a lot of folks are surprised when I tell them that my undergraduate experience was in philosophy. I think a lot of folks expect a computer science background. And I like to really highlight that I think that that's largely what's led to my ability to think about these things, has been the philosophy background. I think a lot of the same logical reasoning skills that you need in order to write a good program are what you need to write a good philosophy paper. They also let you think critically about the kind of society we want, the kind of implications these technologies will have, both in our education system and more broadly. And so, my ability to think about these things was definitely dramatically impacted by that undergraduate experience.
That's fantastic. Now, I see that you did some teaching abroad. So you have a very diverse background. And one of the things that I talk about is how leaders, the most impressive leaders in education, tend to have diverse experiences outside of education. In fact, one of the award-winning superintendents I met over the weekend at a CEO gathering of EdTechs in Florida toured with the Bee Gees for 5 years and was a tutor to the Bee Gees kids.
Great.
And award-winning superintendent. And what's interesting is that they were immersed with a band that had 5 #1 singles at one time.
Yeah.
So when you're immersed with excellence and surrounded by excellence, excellence begets excellence. It's about life experiences. We settle for nothing less than excellent in what we do here at the Mindshare Workspace, with a focus on work and learning. And hence, connecting with someone like yourself is a natural kind of thing that we tend to do. You're amongst Sir Ken Robinson, Dr. Seymour Papert, and Dr. Michael Full, and Andy Hargraves, who was he was a BC professor, not Harvard, but recently. And it's incredible when you hear those stories about the journey. It's not always a direct path.
Yeah, definitely has not been a direct path. It's taken me all sorts of places. I've taught in South Korea for a little bit. I've done some teaching locally here. I've done debate coaching. And then I've built lots of different tools. And so whether that be, we did like some test prep stuff when I was a high school student, to lots of stuff during the COVID-19 pandemic, to reasoning tools and mastery learning and standards-based tools or nonprofit based out of Harvard, to the latest stuff involving AI. There's been thinking about the education system from all different angles.
How connected are you to Harvard today, and have they invited you back to speak?
We're working with them on trying to see if there's some overlap potential with the Graduate School of Education. But our main connection right now is that nonprofit based out of there. They provide reasoning education for K-12 and for higher ed, and in fact, even for graduate schools.
Talk to me about your not-for-profit.
Yeah, which is partnered with the for-profit as well. So United for Social Change is our civics education nonprofit, and everybody on the pedagogy team does a little bit of work on U4SC, and that's where we try to build an interdisciplinary lens for civics education. And so the idea is that in the West we champion a liberal arts education as a way to develop into a flourishing individual in our democratic societies. But there's a huge barrier access there. You have to attend expensive four-year universities most of the time to get a robust liberal arts education. And our goal is to make that more accessible and bring that lower to the K-12 level, so that folks kind of get that well-rounded philosophy, sociology, humanities background along with their STEM background, so they can really think about the world from all different perspectives.
I'm going to throw a name. Thank you for that. I'm going to throw a name out at you. We once had a keynote from a high school student north of Toronto who ended up at Harvard. I knew she was destined for great things. Maya Burnham Parker, and Rhodes Scholar now, and is in New York City. And if you're not familiar with her, she created some of her own patents and was just a remarkable individual that I'm happy to connect you with her.
Yeah, I think I'd love to connect. Yeah.
Alumni. And but we're in good company here. So talk to me what's next. Everyone's grappling with this AI, generative AI, sees great potential, and promise for creating efficiencies and taking away some of the administrative things that teachers are always grappling with in their day and not able to spend enough time with students. Talk to me about what you see, maybe a tip or two that teachers could leverage in besides getting your book and digging deeper, but a couple of tips that you see in terms of turning teachers around in their thinking of why they should embrace it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's two things that come to mind immediately. The first is I think a lot of folks, when they first heard about the technologies in the last year, they went and played with them a little bit, didn't exactly see any use for it because they put in a prompt and they got output that wasn't exactly what they would make. And then they walked away and haven't returned for quite a bit. And so my plea to all of those folks is to go try it again, and maybe even consider truly a free trial, trying the paid plans. Because a lot of these models have been updated and even in the last 6 months to be very, very robust. And the potential to use them in education is even greater. They're capable of generating images, they're capable of analyzing images, their reasoning skills, writing skills are substantially better. And so whatever task you tried already with it and it ended up not really going the way you wanted, I would give it another shot. And then if you still don't feel like it did what you wanted, tell it that. And I think that's the other part where we feel like lots of folks leave where they don't get the exact right thing. We like to tell them, tell the system what it did wrong because it's built to have a conversation with you. And so that is one of the reasons why it became so popular was because it's conversational. And so I highly encourage teachers to make an account on, OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Bard, and go and tell it to make something for you. It has to make a lesson plan or worksheet. And then if it doesn't do it exactly right, tell it why you don't think it was right. And we think that will get folks on board. The second is, I know folks are struggling with figuring out how to deal with the plagiarism problem. They see students cheating, and they're worried about what kind of homework assignments and out-of-classroom assignments they can send students home with. And we also are, we like to have conversations about what that means for what kind of assignments they assign. But that's another place where you can start talking to AI. And so maybe you go to ChatGPT and say, hey, lots of my students are cheating on this essay assignment that I normally assign. What can I do differently? And see what it says. It might help you actually think about ways to get around the problem you're facing.
So the prompting piece is really critical in understanding.
Yeah.
The best responses are based on how you prompt the AI.
Exactly. No, I think that's right. And so I think the more specific folks can be, the more likely that the output is exactly what they want. But for a lot of folks who are using it for the first time, I think they get very concerned with coming up with that exact right prompt for the beginning. And we tell them to just relax, put in exactly what comes to your mind, what you would maybe send in a text message or a Slack message to a fellow teacher, and then just have a follow-up conversation. Because I think that takes off some of the burden and fear about, am I crafting the exact right first thing to say? And I think that sometimes stifles folks from actually taking advantage of the tools. And so while the prompt is really important, the more specific you can be, the better. You will get a better output. Maybe for the first couple of times, you can just go in and just have a normal conversation and see where it takes you.
I thank you for that. I see the power and potential in terms of the lesson planning, because teachers spend hours on lesson planning. To be able to just I've created a couple on the fly, and it's seconds. You just whether it's on a lesson on the solar system, and it gives you the rubric, it gives you the assessment. It's incredible if you ask it the right questions. And
Right.
what about the ones that create a dynamic lesson with images as well? What is that in ChatGPT 4 or another AI? Like what? Maybe you can recommend
Yeah.
one.
Of course, ChatGPT 4 will generate
Yeah.
images, and they'll be custom images. So you can tell it to make a comic book version of George Washington crossing the Delaware River, or a scene from ancient Athens, and it can kind of create your custom image based on that. Google's Bard will actually pull images from the internet. So if you just want something
Okay.
where my go-to example is create a lesson plan with all 9 planets, a picture of them, and a fun fact about them. And it will generate the fun facts and then pull images from the internet that are real as well for all 9 of the planets.
Amazing. So, talk to me about ethics and what teachers need to think about when it comes to the dealing with some of the legal aspects of this. Because if you put your essay into ChatGPT, who owns the essay?
Right. So the terms of service for most of these companies are pretty clear that everything that you put in is your data. Everything that's generated is in fact also owned by you. So they transfer all copyrights for things that are generated to the individual user. But there's really good ethical reasons to think about why we might not want to put particular things into these systems. And so we might not want to share a bunch of student data for complying with state
Right.
and federal student privacy regulations. We might also want to be careful about making sure we tell folks that we're using AI in order to foster that culture with our students as well. And so if you're generating a lesson plan using AI, tell your students that, right? You want them to tell you when they're using AI, and start building that culture of being
Right.
open about when we're using these tools as a supplement, rather than trying to hide away from it. Because I think there's nothing, there's great reasons to use it. It'll free up your time to better serve your students. But the students should also, it'll help the students also think about these things as tools and not as cheating, if you can frame it to them as such.
Absolutely. students today want to be creators, storytellers.
Right.
Give them agency, let them refine their craft. And for me, I found that it's enhanced my writing skills. I'm
Right.
very much more mindful of being more dynamic in my writing and precise, and I attribute that to generative AI. Does that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. And I love using these tools as like a thinking buddy. And so oftentimes the hardest part for me is like starting writing something.
Mhm.
And so what I have it do is just like, I'll say, oh, I want to work on an op-ed about this particular topic. Can you outline it with questions? And so because I find myself, it's much easier for me to answer particular questions. And so then I have an outline for whatever I need to write, but in question format. And so I'm still the one going in there answering these questions. But it's done a good job of giving me some initial fodder to get my brain thinking about the topic in the kind of ways it needs to produce the first draft.
Now, here's a really tough question for you. Did you happen to leverage generative AI in your book writing process?
Yes, of course. And the preface explains exactly how it was used. And the technology was unfortunately not even as robust as it is now when I was writing the book. But it was still a great thought partner in terms of figuring out creative new examples, because I found myself using the same examples frequently. And so
Right.
instead of talking about To Kill a Mockingbird every single time, it kind of was like, oh, gave me some other ways I could think about some of the same things I was thinking about. Editing the book, Grammarly has an amazing AI,
That's brilliant.
spelling and grammar check, syntax check, exactly. So that I'm sure made my copy editor's job much easier. And so it was a great,
amazing.
use
Well,
there as
that's a great example. No, brilliant. Priten, I know you have a busy schedule. You're an impressive young man. I'm so pleased we connected. I look forward to continuing our collaboration and getting you up to Canada, perhaps speaking at our Canadian EdTech Summit next year. I can only imagine what's in store for the coming year. I've never been more excited about the future of education. Closing thoughts.
No, I'm also excited, and I think that these human conversations are really important in the age of AI, and so I'm glad we got to start having one today, and hopefully we can continue it.
Well, I look forward to meeting you in person one day. That was Priten Shah, the author of AI and the Future of Education. My name is Robert Mardlacci of the Mindshare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindshare learning to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.